I am a principal research scientist in our Department of Mechanical Engineering here at MIT. So I run a research group. You can look up our group activities, but today I will be speaking to you in a different capacity as a manager of the Mechanical Engineering Communication Lab. So I just put in the chat, I will do it again for people who just joined, a link to the Communication Lab website, and I will go at the end of my talk today about discussing how you sign up for one-to-one appointments with our fellows. So our fellows are students and postdocs at the department who we train to be good at communicating their research. No, they're already good at doing their research, but in many cases, there is a gap between what we do and what other people actually are capable of understanding what we do, how we do, what's important. And it's up to you really to convey that message to them. Because in most cases, the reason you are communicating with others is because you want something, right? You want to be admitted to grad school, you want to get a fellowship, you want to get a job. And it's really up to you to clearly communicate why these people should hire you and what makes you a great fit to the job with credentials that are required for this job. And as you noticed, so I will start sharing my slides here, that I mentioned two things, and they are equally important because we usually remember when we talk about our research and science to talk about what are we good at and what we have achieved. But in some cases, we forget to highlight, like, so what? Why is this important? Why should other people care, right? And that depends very much on who you are talking to, because different people care about different things. And that's why you need to very clearly connect your experiences with what are their expectations and what are their ideas about, like, their metrics for excellence, their metrics for match, and their general understanding of life and goals. So hopefully after we're done here today, so you can do this, you can communicate your messages through concrete examples. So this is another very important fact, because if you don't give concrete examples that are memorable and people connect you to those examples immediately, your application will sound like anybody else's application. Even if you list all these great classes you took with grades you got and everything else, those documents may look very much like everybody else's documents. So you need to be sure that when you're applying to a program, applying to grad school, applying for a job. So we will focus obviously more on the grad school applications and touch a little bit on the fellowship applications, personal statements, because these are somewhat overlapping, especially in the personal statement part. But again, depends where you apply. So you need to understand their mission, their criteria, their culture, and make sure that you tune your application to hit all those buttons for them, so it resonates with what they want to hear from you. And so that you demonstrate through the match. So once you learn and understand their mission, you go through your research experiences, and then you try to match these things together. So again, we'll speak mostly about grad school applications, and mostly about personal statements, but I will mention in general that fellowship applications, for example, include this other component, which is a research proposal component. Okay, please stop me at any point, shout out or raise your hand. Luckily, there are not so many of us for this type of interaction to be more productive. So please don't wait to the end. But if you want to wait until the end, you can ask me at the end. Okay, so I put before in the chat the, let me see if I need to repeat it for people who joined later. I'm doing it again. So this is just a template that you can use while I am speaking. You can try to fill it out based on the examples that I will be showing, based on examples from your past, from your experience, from your classes, from your research projects, or any other extracurricular activities. Just try to fill it out. That will help you later when you compose your personal statement. Okay, so as you do that, think about this most important part. So like, what is your background? What are your experiences? Don't discard extracurricular experiences. So those can be just as important as things that you did in class, because you can use those things to highlight your passion. So you don't say, if your passion is engineering and this is the message you're trying to convey to grad school committee or a fellowship committee, you want to show that that passion does not stop the moment your classes stop, right? That you take it home with you and you find problems to solve that are maybe not required for class, but you just cannot stop thinking about it. And hopefully that is the case for everybody who is passionate about, in our case, it's engineering, but anything else. And think of adding, again, how you can show examples that are memorable. Like, what inspired you? Better if it's something really unique and authentic, and not like I watched a YouTube video by some big guy who everybody watches videos of, right? Something more personal, more unique, more connecting to the rest of your application. So there should be some common theme that passes through the whole document, and ideally through the whole package of documents, because in most cases, your personal statement is just a part of a bigger package. So you always need to think more globally how that will connect to other documents that go into that package. And we'll talk very briefly about that. Okay, so an effective application requires that you show a qualified match. So again, there are two components here, and neither can be neglected, and they should be shown in unison. So first is you, your skills, your personality, your values, your goals, and then the program. Whatever is their stated mission, whatever is their position on key issues that you are going to tell them you care about, whatever is their culture. Like in grad school, culture is very important. If you don't feel comfortable with the institution culture, you're probably not going to succeed. Whatever projects they did in the past, supported in the past, what kind of people they supported in the past, and you need to find this niche in between where you do overlap with the program. Okay, and so that green zone is your match. You want to be in that green zone, and to find as many as possible concrete examples with numbers, and I will go through that a little more to demonstrate that match. So, okay, you have who on one side, why you apply. So you need to clearly demonstrate, like, why are you interested in applying to this program, this fellowship, motivation. Then you need to convey that as a message, like, I am this brand person. So you need to brand yourself as a certain type of person, and it should be clear that that brand actually provides a match to the program. And then how, again, everything should be done very quantitatively. The more numbers you can provide, the better. The more concrete examples you can provide, the better. Yes, and we're recording. So in principle, you can listen again. There was a question in the chat about the slides. All right. So, okay, so, and this strategy, again, goes through any document you will, well, most of the documents, any document where your personality is involved. Like when you are writing an academic research paper, this thinking probably does not apply, although you still need to show the match to the journal you are applying to connect to the audience. But everywhere where your personality will be judged, these two components and this logic should go through. So again, we're talking about personal statements for fellowships and grad school applications, but also portfolios, interviews. So any of this follow the same logic, just with different examples, maybe in some cases. So again, I was talking about this more broad package of documents, and your personal statement is usually just one part of it, a very significant part. When it concerns grad school, so you have obviously personal statements, resume or CV, and recommendation letters. So this is a package. It should be read as a whole and approached as a whole, because that's how people will process it, people who will be looking at your application. So make sure that you hit, like when you choose people who write recommendation letters, they should be able to support the claims that you make in your personal statements. And hopefully, in addition, they can expand on those claims and give some other examples, because usually you will be limited to, say, 2 pages in your personal statement. Well, depending on the school, but 2 pages. So you can squeeze only so much. And I would strongly advise against squeezing too much and not leaving white space, not leaving clear paragraph demarcation, because that makes your document impossible to read. And then anything that you squeeze in there will be completely lost. So you really need to parse it and remove everything that you can remove to make it more visually readable. But that means that you can add some additional material through other documents, like through resume, through recommendation letters. When you ask your professors or whoever you're asking to write a letter, you can be more specific, and you can ask them, can you please specifically highlight this experience, like this Europe that I did with you from the point of view of whatever. I'm trying to demonstrate my ability to work as a team member here. Can you please comment specifically on that? It will help them to write the letter, because they are writing so many letters. They really need guidance like that. But it also will help you, because you get this one message coming as an orchestra, like from different directions. Same thing with fellowship. In this case, you get, so if you apply for NSF or any other fellowship to support your grad school studies. So now, in addition, you have research statement. So again, your research statement should come in unison with your personal statement. Of course, it expands more into your plans of what you want to do and why. But these 2 documents cannot be disconnected. And again, you need to think strategically that you can put some material in one document and some material in the other document, because again, they would be read together as a package. Okay, so concrete theme, common theme should come through this whole stuff. So let's zoom into personal statements, because this is the first chance you have to introduce yourself as a person, as a brand, as a personality to whoever is going to be reading your application. Okay. So you can see in some cases that the same document is named differently, but it pretty much refers to the same type of document. So it can be statement of purpose, personal statement. I think personal statement is probably more common. Statement of objectives, statement of intent. So all of that already gives you a hint what kind of information should be in that personal statement. So it should be objectives, intent, purpose, background that again makes you qualified to meet those objectives. Okay, so usually we apply for more than one opportunity, and that is wise. You should do that. You should not put all your chips on one place, but don't try to do it too much, because then it becomes really hard to customize. So all your applications become looking more or less the same as everybody else's applications. And it's usually very easy to catch when a statement is so generic. It's clearly not written with a particular school in mind or a particular program in mind. Because even within the same school, say if you will be applying to a couple of different departments at MIT, they have different culture, they have different goals and mission. So even for that, it's really worth customizing. So invest your energy into customizing a few applications, of course, not one, but a few, but make sure that those matter. Of course, the bulk of it would still be you, because yeah, it has to be based on concrete examples and concrete experiences, but you can be picky which ones you highlight based on match, right? Based on the overlap with the program goals. Okay, so this is, again, really technical document with a personal outcome. So you need to mix both, but in a good way. So I'll show you like, what not to do too much. So because it's technical, it should be concrete. You need to show your research that you, in some cases, it does not require that much of research. You just go on a website You read the statement, you look up the faculty members. Again, if you're applying for grad school, you try now, you still have time. You can reach out to a few faculty members and see who can agree to talk to you now or provide any kind of information that you may ask them questions about. So that's your background, your work of like research and opportunity. And then, of course, you need to demonstrate some significant accomplishments from your past. So this is something you cannot bypass. But at the same time, you want your application to stand out, right? So it needs to be memorable. It needs to be ideally motivated by something personal and not generic, not like word piece. Right? And as you write this document, it already shows if you are a creative writer and thinker, because a lot of our work is not just research, but communicating this research. So you will have to write research proposals, well, helping at least writing research proposals for your supervisors, writing your own research proposals for fellowships, writing academic papers, making posters. So there is a lot of communication tasks. So part of a message that you need to pass through this document that you're a good communicator in addition to being a good researcher. Okay, so personal, I don't mean personal as starting in your childhood and that you saw something in the cartoons and that motivated you to be a good researcher. So personal is making you stand out and telling people how you see yourself as a person in a discipline, like an engineering or whatever discipline you choose. So you certainly should include personal experiences, ambitions, and motivations where they relate to your goal. Goal, again, like applying, in this case, for grad school. You may throw in some of these like, more personal stories, but again, carefully, because when you get too many of these or they get too personal, it may not look too well. And if you push too much on the personality side, so that is no longer than a technical document, and it does not achieve its goal as a technical document. So don't do too much of that. So it's a balance, but you need to find that balance. And usually you find this balance by just trying out, writing first draft, then running it by somebody. And that somebody could be one of our communication fellows, and I'll tell you how. Run it by your mom, run it by your best friend or whoever. Every person you will see, they pick up something different. And if somebody notices consistently there is something coming consistently, like you're doing too much on like personal, or you're not doing enough on personal, then listen to that and try to implement it. Okay, so motivation is important. So this is that kind of personal thing that you do want to come in, because people want people to be really committed to the grad school. It's not easy. It takes many years with little pay, and it gets hard. So if you're not motivated, it may not work out. And it's an investment on both sides, right? The graduate school and yourself. So everybody should be in it and really motivated. So why graduate school in general, and why specific area? Because there are other areas, even in engineering, right? Why this one? So it could be as simple as that you want to work with a specific research group because you were really inspired by something that a certain professor did. That could be good enough, but make sure that you are not just picking a random professor and writing that I want to work with him or her, because yeah, you really want to achieve your goal of doing what you want, and your immediate goal is to get to grad school, but long-term goal is much more than that. So you need to start building a pathway to that larger long-term goal. Okay, so this is a concrete advice from a professor. So what he wants to hear in your statement, what a student wants to learn, why he wants to do certain things, and why with me, why not with somebody else. So think how you can communicate with concrete examples and motivation, those things. Okay, so we already talked that everything, of course, needs to be based on your experiences. So you need to get concrete examples of what we did, of what you did before, and how that qualifies you for a certain position or grad school. So, but you need to translate experiences, not just list your experiences, but connect it to qualifications. So you need to make this clear connection to people. Okay, I had this experience, but this is the outcome of that experience. It made me a stronger candidate because I learned A, B, or C. I learned how to, say, deal with failure, or I learned how to work in a large group of people, or I learned how to work with literature. So something should come out very clearly out of your experience. And yeah, those takeaways should be explicit. You'd be surprised when you write something, you think it's obvious because I explained this experience. It's so obvious that people should understand I learned this. But you would be surprised how not obvious it is. So you need to spell it out. Whatever message you want people to get from explaining that experience, spell it out very explicitly. And then again, as I mentioned before, other pieces of your package should convey the same message. That a professor can say, yeah, this person, as a part of he or her doing Europe with me, or taking my class, or TAing for me, they developed a certain skill, or they demonstrated that they had this skill. So something more concrete and quantitative. So the more you can measure it, the better. And I'll give you a couple of examples how you can measure, how you can throw those numbers into consideration. Okay, so these are some examples of what a person wrote. Okay, so here it was important for a person to highlight that they know how to work as a part of a team, how to come up with policy solutions and develop communication skills. So that was introduced through previous experiences. So previous experiences in what positions? So in this case, executive and judicial positions. And then it highlights like what those positions actually taught this person, or what skills were developed as a result, and what were the outcomes. So there are multiple messages within this sentence. So prior experience, skills, and that whatever project this person worked on, they were successful and they resulted in some measurable outcomes. So layered messages like this, you really want to deliver and usually you have to rewrite those sentences multiple times, just checking that all of these messages coming through. And this is actually a great example where an extracurriculum activity was picked to highlight these skills and to highlight this ability to manage and get outcomes. So in this case, it was service in the Mandarin Association of Life and Language, not really something required for classes, but still you can highlight what you did and what kind of skills you developed. So think in your past, what other associations you have been or are a member of, and what kind of leadership, communication, or project management skills you can convey through this type of activities, not only through your classes. All right. Okay, so again, you need to answer all these questions very clearly in a very small amount of space. So again, usually you would start with a much larger chunk of text, and then you need to trim and trim and trim until you get to that very short message, which would be like, I'm a brand person, depending on what your brand is, we'll talk about it. I want to go to graduate school because, and I want to go to this particular graduate school to work with that maybe particular person because. And if you're additionally applying to fellowship, you need to be clear like what this fellowship will help you to accomplish. Not very broadly, it will allow me to go to the grad school, but it needs to be connected to what you want to achieve in that grad school. So building this longer trajectory, not just immediate result of getting to grad school. Okay. So again, this is what you want to convey in a very short sentence. And you want to squeeze here everything: personal vision and mission, some memorable attributes, skills, and experiences. And ideally, all this should connect to the program or organization, to their mission and their expectations. Okay, so of course you cannot do it in one sentence, but you can actually squeeze it into small amount of sentences. So this is an actual example of a person who was a graduate student in our department, already defended their PhD. So what she was building on. So she was an engineering major. So that means she developed technical skills, right? She was a history minor. So she had broad interests. That was one way to show that she looked beyond engineering and wanted to learn other things in totally different fields. And then what was the topic that she wanted to study? And she approached introducing this topic from two directions, and this is the ideal case. And in some cases, like when you're applying for NSF fellowship, for example, you actually want to hit both directions. So one is that this topic presents intellectual challenge, and there are some unanswered questions or designs that can be improved that people didn't do before. So you want to be that person to advance this research to the next level. And also a societal benefit, where in this case, she wanted to highlight that she's motivated by this service to the society part. I mean, it could be some other motivation that you want to highlight, but the more of this you can show through the personal examples, the better. And so if you can see how she did it, so she introduced this personal experience of her trip to India, where she experienced things she never saw back home here in this country. And that provided motivation for her to work on specific topics, like for, in this case, renewable energy. So energy is in shortage in many areas. And shortage of energy may actually translate into shortage of many other things, like clean water or heat or anything else, right? And when you see firsthand, that really can make an impression. And that trip to India was actually part of some project that she did. So again, there are so many layers in here. I just show you a small part of it, but additional sentences, they are connected all these things together. So it highlighted that whatever is her background, broad interests, motivation, that she already was involved in some research project, which allowed her to go to India, where she experienced all those things. And that made her even more motivated and solidified her research topic that she wanted to work on. So this is like a very powerful story that ties everything together. Of course, not everybody gets to go to India in their undergrad studies, but you can still choose to do something locally, even now in those 2 months that are left before the applications are due. So something just as memorable, and again, it doesn't need to be in India. There are a lot of people who need help close by, or a lot of intellectual challenges that you can look for motivation. Okay, so these are just some concrete examples of how to be concrete, pun intended. So instead of speaking in sentences like I became more curious and capable, and what does it even mean, right? What is the measure here? Curious, more curious than what, right? And as capable as others, more capable, right? But you can give very precise numbers here. So say you did literature search and you propose 2 alternative procedures to do something. And then of course you want to be more specific what experiment that is and like what procedures. So that tells a lot of things about you. So you did the literature search. You didn't stop when you found one solution. You actually kept digging until you found another solution. And maybe then that provides opportunities to consider other things like manufacturability, cost, or maybe some restrictions that the lab has. They can only implement one solution and not the other solution, right? So that short sentence actually tells a lot about you as a person and gives some number quantitative information. So same thing about the other example, right? You did learn about the role of enzymes in cancer, but more specifically, what did you do? You quantified kinetics of 3 enzymes. So that tells you what techniques you used. So not just in general reading about it, you actually worked on quantifying some kinetic process, and not just 1, but 3. That shows that you probably built enough experience to really take this further. Yes, Anne.
Hi, so my question is, how do you sound sincere without sounding like you're just saying things that the admissions team want to hear?
Well, that's where you want more authentic examples. It may, and you will need to rewrite it several times again by running it by other people. And again, some of these things, they may be minor. You maybe didn't even think about them. But just look at any of your experiences and think, can I put any number to it? Can I connect it to any specific person that I talk to? And again, you still have an opportunity to actually make it happen. You still have time. So you don't only write about your past. You can make this like future to become past by the time that you apply. So it's actually good that this, I was telling Teresa before we started, I'm happy this is earlier than previous years. So it actually gives you time to make your future, not just write about it. So, and I agree with you, it's hard to sound simultaneously authentic and as a very strong candidate. So parse every experience for those numbers and those outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Yeah, Christian?
Does that also include, excuse me, if we are doing personal research projects or something like that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Those, again, those may be even more powerful. I heard from, well, it's not for the grad school application context, but I'm pretty sure it would work the same for grad school. From recruiters in companies. They especially like when people highlight extracurricular projects. That even if it's something simple, in some cases it was just somebody made a hook for their entrance hall. But that showed that that was a really well-designed hook and decorated around it. I mean, it doesn't sound like a very hard mechanical engineering project, but it showed the passion and attention to detail. So yeah, any personal projects will certainly fall under this big umbrella for sure. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so again, we always have short-term objective and long-term objective. And it may sound easier, so that goes to authenticity. You may fake it if you are good enough and do your research that way. And you can write a very strong application, but you don't want to, even if you are admitted, you actually want to be admitted to a program you want to be in. So think about it more longer term as your career, because you will spend, if you go all the way through like master's and PhD, it's at least 5 years of your life. Do you really want to get stuck in a program you're not truly interested in just because it sounds like a good idea to extend your student life? Maybe not. So just think like, what is your professional trajectory long term? It may change. Don't get me wrong. Many people, including myself, when I was at your point of life, what I thought would be my professional trajectory maybe ended up not exactly that. But it doesn't mean that you don't have a plan. You can change a plan, but you just need to make sure that you build a plan. And that plan should come through. So it's not only backwards looking on your experience and your experience that you generated and skills, but also forward looking. You need to show them, I want these skills because I want to be that person in the future. Say, I want to open a startup. We have an example of that. Or I want to be a professor. And then you show them, I want to build this ladder of my skills to get to that goal. And if it's clear to them, like where you want to be, that makes it. And you can put more specifics, like I want to be a professor in a certain school, or I want to open a startup in like whatever area. You need to be specific. So once you start thinking about it, it actually will become more and more authentic as you go through it. Okay, so how do you build match? So this is something where you need to dig into their information that those organizations, schools put online for you. Because believe it or not, a lot of those short messages you see on the websites are a result of very deep deliberations within the department and identifying what are our critical goals, what are our research areas. So it sounds like something that maybe somebody could have written in one evening, but it's actually not. So you need to read those carefully and see what they state is their mission, their values, research areas, because they will be recruiting in those research areas and they want people to share their mission. I mean, you don't need to just copy, of course, exactly what they said, but you want to show that there is a certain overlap there. So again, there is a lot of information online now. Every year, more and more. So if somebody applied 20 years ago, they were in a completely different situation than you are now. So take advantage of that. Every research group, every professor, and also many students nowadays have their personal website or portfolio. Certainly research groups do. You can look up mine, where we all spell out like what we are doing, what kind of people we are recruiting, in what kind of events we are participating. So just look through that and you may find something that catches your eye and help you to be authentic. Say you go and see that some group won a prize in the energy night or in the fastest car competition or something else. You can include that in your statement in a genuine way, that if that's something, or they built a robot that is like outperforms all the other robots, that this is something that triggered your interest in applying. So just sift through this information, and there is so much of it, something must resonate with you. And again, this is an example from a person who looks at a lot of applications. So in many cases, this insufficient research is what dooms you. And it's not that hard to do because information is out there. So let's just look at what people post. I actually cannot guarantee it's exactly the same on the website right now, because those things change too. Organizations change their missions, well, not completely usually, but they tune them and adapt them year after year. So make sure you go and look up the latest one. But what you can see here, a lot of things I highlighted them myself just to show what you need to look for. Like in the interdisciplinary programs, for example, key. So if you are interested in working across disciplines, make sure that comes through. Or obviously tackling global challenges, something that motivates you. I mean, it doesn't mean you will get to solve that global challenge. And you need to make clear that you understand that. But at least if you can contribute to addressing some challenge that's worth addressing, right? So service to the society is clearly spelled out in addition to solving hardest problems. So you probably want to highlight both, and that was successfully done in that example that I just showed you. Let's look at another one. So in this case, again, this may have changed. This is a couple of years old, but so this is from Caltech. It's a smaller school, very technically oriented, perhaps even more than MIT, and also has some strong connections to NASA and GPL, for example. So they emphasize hardness of the problems, not so much societal impact. So that tells you about their priorities. So when you, and addressing fundamental scientific questions. So when you write an application to this school, you also want to hit on the same buttons and highlight your experiences related to this. And even if you don't have many experiences as an undergrad, you may not have solved any fundamental scientific questions, but at least your curiosity and motivation to solve them. Okay, so this is another one from Oxford. So this one highlights some opportunities they provide, some resources they have, and that's actually applicable to almost every school. Make sure you check what resources they have, because every school has some unique resources: observatories, laboratories, fabrication facilities, libraries or museums, like in the case of some of the old universities like Oxford, right? And when you are writing why you want to be specifically there, if you can make a connection to using their unique resources, it could be human resources too, like I was saying, if you want to work with a specific faculty member, that's also good. But this like real estate type of resources are also very important. So look up and think for yourself. Again, if you want to do astrophysics, you probably should be looking for a school that is equipped with the best laboratory, observatory that you can use. So just make sure that that connection comes through. Or if you want to do semiconductor nanofabrication, it better has the best nanofab. Like, for example, until very recently, MIT didn't. So we actually had to use Harvard's facilities for that. So now, luckily, because we have MIT Nano, we have that capability, but pay attention to that. So it will show much, but it will also guarantee that you can actually do what you wanted to do. Okay, so matching organization mission. Again, this is within our department. You can see there are so many different subunits. So be very clear which of this you want to be part of and why. So why specifically that part of mechanical engineering resonates with you. All right. Okay. Yeah, so again, you can always demonstrate a match through personal connections. And that means just reaching out to people, reaching out to groups. You can reach out to students, not necessarily to professors, to get a feeling about the culture in the lab, the culture in the department, what they found the most challenging and what they reward the most about being in this place. And if you truly build this amount of personal data of talking to several people, better more than one, then you can pinpoint what of this you can include specifically in your research statement to straighten all the other cases that you're making there. Okay, read very carefully all the solicitations. So whether it's for grad school applications or fellowship applications, it sounds trivial, but you'd be surprised how many people fail because they don't read very carefully what is being asked. Okay, so for example, if you want to still build that match, so now we are trying to see match for NSF graduate fellowship application. So these are their statements on the mission and vision. So who they fund, what they value. So it's a lot of words here, but let's look at the most important ones that I think are coming through here. So they are investing in the future workforce development, unlike some other programs, which invest into solving specific technical problems, specific questions or designs or building something. NSF is different. So again, in other programs, you need to find what's unique to them and hit that button. These people want to build the best researchers. They don't care in what field. You just need to demonstrate your potential, that you can be part of that globally engaged workforce, so showing your global interdisciplinary interest, that you propose a holistic plan of how you're gonna approach your education, like when you get to that grad school, what are you gonna do there? So it's not just I want to get there and start solving problems. So it needs to be more than that. It should be vision for the whole, whatever number of years in the school, right? So you just need to demonstrate potential. And it may happen, they don't actually check, although there is a research statement as a part of this research proposal, they never check if you actually do what you promised to do in that research proposal. You may pivot, they understand, because you write in some cases this research proposal before you even admitted to a research group. So of course you will have to do what your research advisor will recommend to do with some input from you too. But so it's more important that you can spell out that you have a plan. Again, that plan may change, but you're capable of building a plan and supporting your statement that you have a plan. Okay, and in NSF applications and in many other applications, you want to highlight these two parts. NSF makes it very, very specific that you need to address both of them explicitly. But in any other application, you probably still want to address them, even if it's implicitly. So it's intellectual merit. So how you see yourself of in advancing knowledge and understanding or building new devices or whatever you want to do, and also broader impacts. Those broad impacts can be defined differently. It could be you want to be the best educator and you want to develop educational programs that help to teach people at any level, really, right? Or it could be some societal outcome, or it could be interdisciplinarity. So yeah, just make sure that it resonates with the rest of your experiences and what you really want to do. So again, that intellectual merit, it just shows intellectual ability. So planning and conducting research or programs or anything you did, even extracurricular, again, that you are capable of planning and executing. And you can do it independently or you can do it as a team member. And you take initiative. So anytime you can highlight that you took initiative in something and actually took it to fruition, that's a winner. That's a really good concrete example. Okay, so there are some another example here, how a person was highlighting intellectual merit part. So again, at this point, there was not much research done, but they started working on this research, they did literature review, and they identified what would be important for future research. What is the range of parameters that need to be looked at? And you need to show that that understanding comes through. Even though your research is only starting, you have a plan on how you're gonna do that. Okay, and this is a broader impact. So as I already said, okay, it could be teaching, course development, working with people who can benefit from your research across different groups, enhancing infrastructure for research, dissemination, society as a whole. So again, could be different. You don't need to hit all these buttons. You just need to make it authentic and hit some that that will connect to the rest of your application. Okay, so this is actually from the same person we already looked at branding. So again, here, an example of how you connect your motivation and research topic to broader impact. So again, that fundamental understanding that will allow some societal benefit through new technology. And that technology was clean and renewable energy. And this is the last example I wanted to show. So this is from the, it's a little wordy, but I'll go through it very quickly, highlighting specific parts. So this is from the grad school application. So, and you can see here that there is a whole long-term strategy is built up, starting from the ultimate goal. So this person wants to launch a startup at the end of their studies that would do certain things. So now they're trying to build this whole ladder, why they need to go to grad school and what they did before even applying now that will advance this goal for them. So they highlight previous classes they took, projects, leadership roles, and some examples how they overcame failure. So you can see this is not a personal example. This is an example related to a project, but it conveys this message of perseverance that they did not stop and they worked hard until they hit the goal. And you can see there are a lot of numbers here. So speaking of this overcoming failure, so there was a specific goal they needed to reach, and they did meet that goal. At the very first example, so this first example was used to provide motivation and excitement about the work, how happy they were when they hit some metrics, but also it showed that attention to that metrics. So there was a number right there. And then there are a lot of numbers at the end here when they spoke about this captainship of the electric vehicle team. So that in itself speaks of the leadership role and commitment beyond classes. But also it's very specific, like what they did, how long was the race, how many miles, how many days, what did they do, and like how they placed in the end. And so all these little examples tell people that you actually did what you are telling that you did. That is very true, especially for internship experiences. Because in many cases, people do 1 month internship somewhere, and then they claim that they have all these experiences in different techniques. It's very clear that the person didn't really do any of that, maybe at best observed others doing it. So you want to be very specific what you did as a part, even if it's a little thing. Maybe you just helped somebody to code a better interface for whatever they were doing, or worked on one small part of a prototype, but be very clear what you did. And then it conveys the message that you actually did something and not just spent a month observing somebody else's work, and then you just claim that you have all these experiences. Okay, so this is the bulk of information I wanted to give you. And the last important piece is where you can get more help. So beyond just listening to me to an hour, you can actually go and talk one-to-one to our communication fellows with your examples, with your kind of statements, that's drafts that you wrote, and they will go with through them with you and help you to improve. So how do you do that? You go to the MechE Communication Lab website. So if you click on that, well, you cannot click, but if you type that link that I have there, it will bring you to our website. There are different resources here. So there are resources that you can use as examples. So there are, you can see for different types of communication tasks. There are strategies how to prepare those documents, and also some authentic examples how people actually did it, with our comments of what they did good and what they could improve on. So you can start here when you're still building your own examples and your own draft. Then when you have a draft, or even before you have a draft, you can actually come for brainstorming before you have anything at hand. You can make an appointment with one of our fellows. So you don't need to have MIT email for those of you who are not current MIT students. You still can sign up. We had people before, after this workshop, signing up. Just click on this option 1, use an online scheduling system. So when you do it for the very first time, it will ask you to register, which is pretty simple. And then it takes you to this schedule. So it's pretty straightforward. We have fellows and they have open hours. So this red things, that means somebody booked their time to discuss their communication task. So you just find any empty spot here. So far, it's a lot of them. You will see if you go later in the season when all the deadlines come, everything will be red. So don't waste time and go now. So you click here and you make an appointment with a person. It can be online. Of course, if you are not in Cambridge area, that's the only way. So, and they talk to you on Zoom and they discuss your specific examples. And of course, we have one, I think one postdoc now, and everybody else is a grad student. So here at MIT, so they went through exactly the same application you would be going through. So they can probably be even more specific than I can be. And if you want to check which of them has what kind of expertise, you just go to Meet Our Fellows tab, and you can go further into each of them and just check what they do, what groups they work with, and you can use them as a contact also to ask about their research experience and culture experience and anything else. And they're great people, and I'm pretty sure they will be very happy to help. All right, yeah, so that wraps up.
Thank you so much, Sveta, for this wonderful talk. I